right. Our guest today is Texas A&M class of 76, class of 82 for the MBA program, owns a business in the electronic manufacturing services sector, and also has owned a winery and vineyard and managed a winery and vineyard since 2001. Mike Thompson, how are you today?
Thank you, Ben. Thanks for having me here today.
It is a pleasure to have you on the show. You're a man of many talents, and we are very appreciative of you giving us your time. What brought you to campus today?
Fortunately, a few years ago, I was asked to be on the advisory board for the MBA program here at Texas A&M, probably about 7-8 years ago. And today's one of our board meetings, and tonight, actually, the MBA group has their brisket bowl that they annually do, which I'll be pouring our Thompson 3150 wines tonight.
Fantastic. I'm going to pretend I don't know what brisket bowl is, so you can tell our audience a little bit about it.
Well, Shannon Deere, who's been the most recent director of the MBA program, going back a few years ago, the students kind of was a way to have a break and from their studies, which is very, very concentrated and condensed, to do a brisket cook-off, basically. And they form some teams and do that. And a lot of the alumni comes in, and there's a chance for some of the alumni to have some camaraderie with the current students that are here, and the students just kind of get a little bit of a break in the action from their academic studies.
And so as a member of the MBA advisory board, I'm also going to pretend I don't know anything about what that is, although actually as a former MBA student and a former graduate student in another department as well, the MBA advisory board is still a little bit of a black box to me. So tell me and the listeners a little bit more about what you guys do.
Well, I think for those of us that have been privileged to be involved, it's a chance to give an outside view and to the program, our thoughts, what we think the marketplace may be looking for, and hear where the program is going, and give some input as former graduates. Not everyone, most everybody's at least an undergraduate, if not an MBA graduate. But the biggest thing for me is a chance to meet the students and try to be mentors and advisors, and many of them will stay in touch with us as they go on after the program and bounce ideas and ask questions, and we're there to help and support any way possible.
The biggest thing that I realized about work from childhood to adulthood was coming to understand that it's really about relationships as much as, or maybe more than anything else. What do you think your biggest contribution as an advisory board member has been?
I think just being willing to be a mentor and advisor for the students that have called me and the ones I've met with, and answer questions, a lot of the ones that you might ask today, and what do we do in this situation? How did you handle this situation? It's everything from ethics to workload, life balance, having families, and how did you actually balance all those things? You have all these people that are so demanding in of your life, particularly when you come out with an MBA from Texas A&M. You're going to go normally into a very responsible position, and it's hard for maybe the academic side to prepare some of the students for that. We're the guys that are out on the field every day, living it.
We're definitely going to come back to the many demands on your time later, but. So you would say 1-to-1 is where you've had the biggest impact?
I think so, yes.
Okay. So let's zoom out for a second and we'll start with our icebreaker question, the question that we ask of all our guests. What is your favorite superpower?
Well, telepathy, which I heard was one of yours, would be one that I would like to be able to hone in. I would love to know what everyone else is thinking and be able to read their mind. You can do a little bit of that in life. It'd be great to be Mel Gibson of What Women Want and be able to actually read everybody's mind, know what they're thinking. It'd be very helpful.
I enjoyed that movie as well. A lot of fun physical comedy in that movie. So your father. So we're talking about history with the university. Your father gave 35 years of service to Mays as a faculty member. Let me know if I get the dates right. From 1951 to 1986.
That would be correct.
So a big thank you to him, obviously. How did he influence you? And obviously, you ended up coming here. What were the conversations like that you had with him about making choices in higher education?
Well, believe it or not, he probably had very little impact on me coming to Texas A&M. Certainly a lot of impact in me going to college and going on further.
Right.
But like everyone, I thought I might leave. I grew up here, born and raised, and I thought I would leave and come back maybe someday. I did love Texas A&M. I love the school, but when you're hometown kids, sometimes you want to get away and have a chance to experience something else and maybe come back to graduate school. As it turned out, we did have a disagreement on rules and regulations, and so I decided I would pay my own way through and not ask for anything, so then I could do whatever I wanted. The only way I could really do that was to have 3 jobs here on campus and go to school, which I did all the way through and graduated on time in 4 years. How
did you manage this? This is not a question we discussed earlier, but how did you manage 3? Like, what were the 3 jobs, and how did you balance the schedule?
I worked at the Texas A&M golf course, starting at the end of high school all the way through college. In fact, there are people that would still remember me from being behind the cash register. And when that included working physically on the course, mowing greens, riding gang mowers. I had a job with North American Van Lines as a mover on certain weekends whenever I was available, and I'd work on the moving truck for Homer Adams, who owned Adams Moving Storage. Then I worked at a driving range where I picked up golf balls. Before they had all the machines that drive around and pick them up, we did it by hand with a ball collector. So those were, and then I managed a bridge club on Thursday nights. It sounds kind of bizarre, but I babysat a bridge club, got paid, $30 and watched TV. So it wasn't a bad deal. So I did those things all the way through school.
That sounds very busy. So when you're going out to pick up, this is not business related at all, but when you go out to the driving range to pick up the golf balls by hand, do they have like a no swim policy during that time, or you having to watch make sure you don't get in there?
They took a screen door, like a screen door you would put on the back door of your house, and put a handle on it, and we held it here and drug it, and the balls would bounce off the screen door while we got the ball puncher, picking up balls manually, and literally a screen door. There's no exaggeration. This is exactly how it happened.
That sounds incredibly glamorous. So as we're riding the wave of nostalgia this weekend, as a student, when you were taking courses, holding a screen door in front of yourself so you don't get hit by golf balls, what did you see yourself doing once you graduated? What were your goals at the time?
I had humble goals. I had believed that I did have plans to go to graduate school and get an MBA. That was in my plans. And I had, by the time I got kind of to that point, I started working for the university when I was 15 in the cotton fields. And every summer we were picking cotton and chopping corn and foundation seed stocks, which I think is still over there. And so I actually accrued time with the state of Texas toward a pension. Oh. So I had almost 10 years in the pension plan without really knowing it. And so I believed at that point I was going to work for the school in the state of Texas the rest of my life. Yeah. Buy a house, get married, have a couple of kids, and retire and drift in the sunset and live here in College Station. That's what I thought I was going to do.
Well, so if you could give students advice as to how they should formulate their goals, obviously there was a clear and obvious track for you, and things have gone completely differently. Not in a bad way.
Right.
I would say you seem very happy with the way your life has unfolded.
I am.
But so given all of that, what advice would you give younger people about formulating goals and planning out their life? You seem like a planner. I'm a planner.
So when I was my last semester of the MBA program, at that time, Dr. Bill Muse was the dean of the College of Business, and he taught a course. It was a non-credit course that was on career planning. And like most people would ask, "What do you want to do the rest of your life?" I don't know. I hate to say it, but I really didn't know. And so Dr. Muse's course was very methodical. And you basically, in that semester, you went through a lot of chapters of question answers and series where you answered their questions about yourself. Mm-hmm. And in the end, you kind of drew a conclusion about what type of person you were, what type of job that you wanted, what type of career did you want. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? Did you want to just be local and have an 8-to-5 job? Did you want to have an exciting career and travel? If you had a family, did you want to spend more time at home? all of these types of things. Did you want to be in philanthropy? And, and at the end, it kind of helped me lay out where I wanted to go. And recently I pulled the plan out, sent it to my children and said, how did I do? It almost mimics what's in the plan, or the way my life turned out. I never really thought through it that way, but that's how it came out.
So then walk us through the history a little bit. So from MBA all the way through, opening ITS, opening the Vineyard, give us a little bit of the just historical.
So after graduation, a few things happened that made me realize that I probably didn't want to, work for the state the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And I had a great job offer that doubled my salary at the time to go into oil field services, which what is today modern day Halliburton. It was another corporation called NL Industries at the time. Mm-hmm. And so I moved to Houston, got in kind of trying to be on a fast track with their corporate. They had 22,000 employees, which was big at the time. Mm-hmm. And I was hoping to fast track my way through the management system, become a president of one of their divisions. That was my goals then at that point. What I did know was a couple years after I went into the industry, the oil bust took place. And despite what you may read, I'll tell you almost exactly, it started in May of 1982. Mm-hmm. And, right after I had walked out of this program. And so as that evolved for several years, I realized that I was going nowhere. I had laid off 500 people face-to-face over about 6-7 year period. That was pretty depressing, and nothing was really changing with the industry. I had a job, but I wasn't really going anywhere, and there was nothing advancing me. So I was called about an opportunity to get into the electronics manufacturing services industry. And
EMS.
So I took a leap of faith, and I changed industries and started all over again. And it was all in manufacturing, which is what I really did for NL Industries. I was running manufacturing operations. And so EMS was the same thing. It was just more pure electronics than electromechanical type manufacturing. Mm-hmm. And so I got into that, and that became a career path at that point. And I grew into corporate management. I became chief operating officer of a public company that got purchased. And after all those years of running these factories in San Jose and Colorado Springs and Alabama and everything else, I decided to take another leap of faith, stay in the same industry, but take an opportunity to become vice president of sales and marketing, which leads to a lot of what we're going to talk about here. And it was a very high incentive opportunity. Fortunately for me, I was able to capitalize on that. And it had unlimited commission with no caps. And so it really helped me evolve. And I'd never been strictly in sales. Mm-hmm. It was my first time. But because I was selling the services and I had run the factories, it was pretty easy for me to tell the customers what we did. Mm-hmm. So that's how I rolled into that.
So tell the audience a little bit more about what EMS is exactly.
So really starting in the 1980s, IBM, Hewlett-Packard, Dell, Apple Computer, all these types of companies decided to no longer have bricks and mortar and no longer have their own in-house factories. And so they began to outsource all the manufacturing. And so today, most of those companies are virtual corporations. They're design, engineering, and sales and marketing. And other people build all the products. So that's the industry really grew and evolved. At one time, Wall Street had it in the semiconductor index of the stock market, which really didn't make any sense. They didn't know where to put it. Mm-hmm. But now it's the largest company in the industry is over $200 billion in sales, and there's a lot of $20 billion companies out there, and that's all we do. We build other people's products.
So was there a specific event or moment that influenced you to open your own business in that sector?
So through the industry, the companies I was with continued to get acquired. Mm-hmm. And every time we would get acquired, I still had a job. I still had great opportunity, but it changed the dynamics. So the last time we were acquired by a merger acquisition group, and they came in and evaluated, wanted me to move to Phoenix, and it was going to be more of a staff job with no incentive. Mm-hmm. I'd be on their board, but the upside wasn't there. I was going to take about a 80% pay cut to take that position, to keep the position I was in. So I kind of looked at everything. I was in pretty good shape, and I thought, I think I'm just going to work for myself the rest of my life. And so from that, I moved into stocks, bonds, real estate, various things. And one of those was I would go ahead and fund an EMS company, which is our company, ITS, iTechnical Services. And I had planned at the time to be more of a financier, a long-distance owner, not hands-on in the business. That didn't actually work out too well, and I did wind up becoming very involved in the business. But originally, I was just going to be the main investor and owner of the business.
Okay, we're going to come back to that as well, because you've taken a very hands-on approach to your other business as well, which, as you shared with me the other day, is frequently not the approach that people take to that particular business. But so you've been running ITS for nearly 18 years. What do you think is the biggest driver of your success with that company?
With that company, it's really customer relationships and employee relationships. In this day and time, and everything's about big data, and everything's about doing everything electronic, social media. But the truth is, it's still a people-to-people business. All the businesses I'm involved in and all the charitable work, it's still a people-to-people business. That just doesn't really change. And that may not always get taught, but it's really true.
So then you eventually decided to open a vineyard and a winery. How did we get there?
So when I took the job of Vice President Sales and Marketing that I referred to, I then was hosting a lot of dinners for executives and in many cases engineers with IBM, EMC, Hewlett-Packard, Sun Micro, on and on and on. And I'm doing these big dinners at Pappas Steakhouse in Del Frisco, and I'm in New York, I'm in LA, I'm in Chicago, Denver, San Francisco, San Jose, and I'm the host of the dinner. And they hand me the wine list. Well, I'm from College Station, Texas. I knew 3 wines: Boone's Farm, Mad Dog, and Thunderbird. And those 3 wines were not on the list. So I came home and I told my wife, I said, Valerie, we're going to have to go out and learn something about wine. We made our first trip to Sonoma County, where we eventually settled later on. And from there, we began to go to, Napa and Willamette in Oregon and Washington and Paso Robles, and then all through France, Italy, Spain, Germany, trying to learn about wine. And so that led to us getting involved in charity wine auctions. And so some of the organizations that you saw that I'm involved in, all the funding is driven by these charity wine auctions. And so all of a sudden I was full in on recruiting winemakers from around the world to come to these events, whether it's Emerald Lagasse Foundation or whether it was Enrico Children's Advocacy Center or any of those. And so our life became revolved around hanging out with all these winemakers and owners and people. And the day came, I said, why don't we just go do this ourselves? Let's go buy a place. This is great. It's a great lifestyle. It's a great food style. It's agriculture. It's wonderful people. Drinking wine. Come on, are you kidding me? And so we took the leap of faith in 2013, and we bought an old property in a prime location. Mm-hmm. In Hillsburg, California, in the Russian River Valley. It had great water, it had views to die for. And I said, we'll plant the vineyard, which we did. We'll build our own private tasting room, and we'll start making our own wine, and we'll create a label, and maybe they can use some of that for our charitable causes. And I hope that at some point I can use that to do something for Texas A&M.
Excellent. And so tell me about the throwdown, and you're going to have to pronounce it for me first, because there's 8 different ways you could pronounce this.
Yes, the Chichi Miguel throwdown.
That one.
So there was an impromptu discussion in a kitchen of a winemaker's home in 2005 about who could cook the best barbecue ribs. And I had friends from Florida, which I had moved to, and that were there. They said, well, Mike Thompson, he's Texas. He's the best barbecue guy around. And they said, you want some California boys to come down to Florida and teach you how to cook?
Whoa.
So the challenge was on. And my wife then organized this all of a sudden. We're going to have people there. This is going to be voted by the crowd, and we're going to have this true throwdown, in our backyard. And so she needed a name for it. So when my father was teaching here, I was probably 5th or 6th grade. He did a summer in the Dominican Republic, and Texas A&M had sent some professors after they had their revolution. Trujillo had been the dictator. He was assassinated, taken out, and our professors were sent down to help them try to rebuild their economy with ideas on how to get their marketing programs in place and things like that. So those people began to come live with us in the next few years. And some came to school here and graduated and then went back home and helped build their businesses. So while they were here, I was learning to play golf. My name was Michael. Chichi Rodriguez was the famous Caribbean golfer of the day, and they started calling me Chichi Miguel. So it became kind of a family name. And so fast forward to the throwdown, and my wife pulled that out of the hat for whatever reason, and it stuck, and it's been there ever since. I think 13 years now.
It's a great name for a throwdown. Sometimes producer Kyle and I throw down when we're feeling feisty. So you have so many interests. You're involved in so many organizations. As currently listed, you're still active in 10 professional organizations. How do you keep up?
Well, I probably don't do a real good job at most of them, and I've been open with even some of the boards of those. They're mostly all children's charities that do all types of various things. But because we raise a lot of money, Chichi Miguel Throwdown did $2 million this year, and then it all went to charity, 100%. They won't let me off those boards and off those involvement in those activities. And so we do the best we can. We host a lot of wine dinners for them. We donate a lot of wine for them and help them raise a lot of money, and then become active and hands-on in some of those boards. I don't make every meeting, but I make as many as I can.
I'm really big on counterintuitive advice. So many students in the MBA program here at the university at large struggle with balancing organizations, classes, social life, and so on. As a guy who has a lot of balls in the air, what advice would you give to those students? Something that might not be so immediately obvious.
Well, certainly at their stage of life, they could probably never do what I do today, and I couldn't either at that stage of life. The hardest thing for them is going to be whatever their family relationship is. If they're single, they have a lot more flexibility to do things. If you have, if you're married or you're in a relationship and then you may have children involved, it becomes very, very difficult. And you really wind up with just trying to balance your family and your job as best you can. Probably not a lot of time to do other things, but you got to always put the family first. Down the road, as my children grew up and moved on, and then I went to work for myself, well, then that allowed me to have a lot of flexibility I would have never had in a different type of role. And that's what's really allowed me to be this flexible and juggle a lot of balls. I could have never done it, though, when I was their age.
And yet you still work 7 days, per your own declaration the other day, you still work 7 days a week. It starts in the morning with an iPad in bed when you wake up. I'm sure the listeners will be interested to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, it's the first, whatever happens in my life between investments and these businesses and these charities and, other things, family, things going on, that's the first thing I do to try to immediately see, because I may be in a different time zone every 2 or 3 days between Eastern, Central, and Pacific. We cover a lot of ground. My wife and I move around a lot, with 2 homes and a business in another state and children and family in other places. So that's the first thing I do. And then I have to divide my mornings. And if I'm in California at, 5 o'clock, I'm going to talk to the East Coast and I'm going to get all that out of the way. And then I'll go to Central Time. And then by 10:30 Pacific Time, I can go back and put my attention on what's going on in California. If I'm in Alpharetta, Georgia, it's the other way around. I try to get all the things on the East Coast done first, then later in the day, then I begin to catch up on what's going on in Central and Pacific time zone. Then, picking up the iPad, my wife hates it because she said, can't you just focus and watch a movie or something? I can't. There's just too many things, too many moving parts, and all these charitable organizations. It's just nonstop. So I have 3 email addresses. I'm trying to keep them separate and try to keep up with all of them.
And you mentioned that your life has become more this way as your kids have gotten older, and you're able to focus. You're able to specialize a little bit more life-wise, I guess.
Well, put my attention to other things. So I've got to make my wife my number one priority, and then after that, then it becomes, philanthropy, charitable obligations, and then our businesses. And my children they have their own lives going on, and they only call me when they really want something.
Speaking of parents and kids, I am from here as well. My dad is currently a professor of economics, has been for, I believe, 40 years. I think he just completed his 40th year. And he encouraged us to get away and then come back if we wanted to. That ended up being my journey. So when you are here, you've spent time in a lot of different places. When you are here, how does this community feel to you? What is unique about this community relative to some of the other places that you've been?
Well, certainly Texas by itself has its own unique identity. I having lived in several states now, me coming here, particularly to College Station, obviously the town has changed a lot from when I grew up here, but there's still something about the people here. The people here are down to earth. They're the salt of the earth. They're honest. Their integrity. They're polite. They have great manners. They are always thinking of other people. I feel that way when I'm here. Don't always feel that way everywhere else, but certainly here, there's just something special. In Texas A&M, once we joined the SEC, and I was living in Florida, so I was in the middle of SEC country, the last 19 years. The behavior at other stadiums is not like here. And all my friends, whether they're LSU, Ole Miss, Auburn, Alabama, all of them, they've all to one person said, wow, College Station is impressive. Absolutely. The student body there, the way we were treated like no other place in the SEC.
No question. So you're involved with the American Diabetes Association, the Emerald Coast Children's Advocacy Center, the Emerald Lagasse Foundation. Is there an organization that you'd like to mention specifically to our listeners?
Well, I think today my biggest focus has been the Emerald Lagasse Foundation just the last few years. Mm-hmm. That foundation, we support as many as 13 different causes. So it's an umbrella that lets us do St. Michael's School for Autism, Liberty's Kitchen in New Orleans, Cafe Reconcile in New Orleans. Now that's branched on to the Seaside School in Florida, another couple other endeavors in South Florida, and now in California. And it's all related to mentoring and inspiring children through food and as a way to improve their life. Sometimes that's employment. Sometimes that's just a healthier eating style. Sometimes that's in New Orleans, instead of fighting it out on the street corner, sit down, have a civil meal, talk to the person across the table from you. There's so many ways that takes place. And so that's been my biggest focus. The Emerald Coast Children's Advocacy Center, which is in Niceville, Florida, and has another branch in Defuniak Springs. It's for child abuse. And I've been involved in that really almost 10 years now, hands-on on the board. It's very humbling because I get to meet and see the children that get brought in that have been physically abused and mentally abused, and try to help them rebuild their life so they can go on and overcome the obstacles that they went through. So those two I've spent the most time in. There's several others. Food for Thought, which is backpacks for the kids on the weekends that don't get fed. Mm-hmm. It's children in crisis, and just different ones like that we've really spent a lot of time in. But I'm not on their board so much, but I'm involved with them directly.
Do you ever have trouble transmitting your message if you're talking with someone who's from the streets, for lack of a better phrase, and do you ever get pushback in terms of what is this rich white guy trying to come in and tell me how to solve my problems by cooking a meal for somebody who disrespected me? Like, do you ever have struggles with that?
Well, fortunately, the situations I've been in when I've met these young people, they're past that. they're already looking toward this is helping me.
Okay.
And so fortunately, I've actually never encountered that, because the ones that are in the program, the ones that might have felt the way already left the program, by the time I get to meet them and see them, they're already well in the program, and they're telling me and thanking us for helping support this. I mean, there's a young man that we really have gotten to know fairly well, and he was dropped out of high school, sit on the front porch every day doing drugs, drinking cheap bourbon and everything. He said a homeless man walked by and said, "You young men need to get off the porch and do something with your life." And he said, "Well, look at you, you're homeless." He said, "That's what I mean. You young men need to get out there and do something with your life." He said he thought about it, and he's like, wow, really made an impact. So we came to Cafe Reconcile, where he started taking out the trash, chopping onions, washing dishes. And when I got to meet him, he tells the story, and all he could do is say, "Thank you for providing me this opportunity," because now he became a sous chef, and he was going to Cordon Bleu cooking school in Europe.
Wow.
And with a guaranteed job at Commander's Palace when he got back. So I've only gotten to meet them when they're really already past that initial hump and realize what an opportunity. So I've been blessed in that regard. Some humbling stories out there.
One of the most poignant things that ever happened to me, when I first moved to Los Angeles, I was flat broke. I had taken a job in insurance to make ends meet. I was working as an insurance agent out there. And the business, I was probably 3 or 4 months in, had some early success, and then was sort of hitting some tough times in sales. And I was sitting out in the courtyard near where our business was housed, where our agency was. And this homeless guy that I had seen before, he was pretty put together for a homeless guy, but he was out there, and he had asked for money before. So he walks by and he says, "Hey bud, can you spare a quarter?" And I said, "I'm sorry, man, I don't have one." And he saw that I was kind of in a bad way that day, and he said, "Do you need a quarter?" And I kind of looked up at him and I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, everybody has a tough time now and then, and maybe you just need a leg up." And it stayed with me obviously to this day, and I don't think I'll ever forget it. The idea that we can show kindness to anyone, and that anyone can show us kindness in turn. Honestly, I think that's one of the things that sort of inspired things like this podcast, was the idea that you can find something great in everyone, and that everyone has that sort of that hero inside them waiting to boil out, or in some cases a hero that has already boiled out in a good way. And so I guess when we come to a place like this, that's what we're hoping to discover in ourselves and each other, I think. Any final long-form thoughts before we move to some rapid-fire questions?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to be here, and always to be on campus at Texas A&M University. And, growing up here, my father having his career here, and, I would say I had a unique perspective in the fact that as the College of Business was being formed, it was the Department of Business back in those days, with subjects in marketing and finance and accounting. But literally in front of my eyes, I remembered it later that I got to meet and see the people that would come in and out of our home that helped build the College of Business, including the first dean, Dr. John Pearson. And it was kind of cool to look back and see that.
I bet so. So a few rapid fire questions as quickly as possible. What do you consider your most valuable failure?
Listening to other people and not following my gut.
Okay. What do you think is people's biggest misconception of you?
Most people that have known me the last many years think that my life is just one constant party, and I just go from one party to the next, and I've got the greatest life in the world, which I do, but they think I'm just partying all day, every day.
If you could have anyone as a mentor for one day, who would it be?
President in General James Earl Rudder.
Okay. What is your fondest memory of TAMU?
My fondest memory was beating University of Texas in 1975.
Excellent. We will end each session with we end each session with some good bull, an opportunity to recognize someone else for something good or great that they have done. Do you have any good bull for us today?
Yeah, I've got three people I would like to say something positive about. Brandon Coleman, class 78. He's been a great former student and a great supporter of the School of Business, and is a great supporter of Thompson 3150 Wines today. So I thank Brandon for everything he's done for the school. A lot he did for my father. My father was a mentor to him, and he then in turn became a mentor to my father in a lot of ways. But now he's helping me, and he's just really a great A&M graduate. I have Trent Kelly, who is class of 92 or 3. I hope I got the right years. He was a Yale leader here. Been a great alumni, a great supporter of a lot of charitable causes, and worked with me in many capacities, and obviously supported with our wine business. And then J.J. Ruffino, Johnny Ruffino, who was known in the area as having J.J.'s liquor stores, which he sold to Specs. Really has done a lot of great things in the community and for the school, and for me personally as well. And those three guys I'd like to have a shout out to. Yeah,
I remember driving past JJ's when I was a kid. There were a couple of locations in South College Station, maybe a couple more. Yeah. So I'm going to break the rules of the rapid fire questions a little bit. Why the 1975 game?
It was the football season of my senior year, which was the fall of my senior year. We had not beaten University of Texas since I was in the 6th grade, and my senior year, the fact that we finally won, after all those years, it was. We've obviously later on won a lot of games, but that had been a long dry spell, and being a senior, that was really meaningful to me.
I know the feeling. I was with the coaching staff in 2006, and it hadn't been quite that long, but we hadn't beaten them being Texas since the bonfire game at that point, and that was to beat them at their place was really meaningful. So I'm with you. Why Rudder?
So President Rudder, and again, me growing up here, he was a larger than life person. He put the biggest footprint on Texas A&M University than anyone that ever walked on this campus. And watching that even as a kid, I sat in his living room when I was 10, 11, 12 years old at the president's house. And then 2 years ago, I sat in his bunker at Pointe du Hoc in Normandy with his name on there, where he led the command that climbed the cliffs of Pointe du Hoc. And looking at he commanded such a respect and a presence. People don't really, in my time and growing up here, we don't remember anything about integration. And because President Rudder had a seamless plan how that happened here without it being any issue. The media didn't know for weeks that A&M had integrated. And partly because A&M had foreign students for many, many, many years from all over the world, and it became. But President Rudder had a whole plan. You can read his book, Rudder. He didn't write it, but it was written not too long ago, and it explains exactly how they did that. So he was always thinking ahead for the school and the future of the school, and then becoming a full co-ed university. Nobody but President Rudder could have made that happen at a time when really most of the alumni was probably against it. I don't think anymore, but back at that time it was. He commanded such a presence because of what he had done in World War II and being a hero like he was, and so much respect. He knew the future where the school needed to be in all those kinds of areas, and he had a plan, he executed it, and probably nobody else could have ever pulled that off.
Well, obviously we are grateful for the opportunities that have been created for women at the university, and it's also nice not to have to hang out with dudes all day long.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what made you choose the name Thompson 3150?
So we looked at, as we entered the business, how did we identify ourselves? And we thought about labels like leap of faith and, things like that, and something unique. And we studied, French, Italian, Spanish, Greek, books looking for names and ideas. Lee Martinelli Sr. from the Martinelli wine family, the 6th generation, he said, if you believe in your product, you put your name on it. That's where we'd never thought about Thompson. He said, no, you put your name on it. So then what's the rest? And a very good friend of mine who was successful in marketing in the wine business, one of the things that we're so proud of is our address at 3150 West Side Road. We believe West Side Road is the Rodeo Drive of Sonoma County, and it's a really prime location. And he came up with the play on words, have the 3-1 and spell the 50 out.
Yeah.
And then it leads to a question, and then it allows us a chance to tell our story that, hey, we're at 3150 West Side Road.
And here we are.
And here we are.
You mentioned that the way you handle the business as a vineyard owner and a winery owner is different than the way some people do it. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
The majority of the people at my stage of life and that didn't maybe grow up in that business are normally a little more financial owners and not as hands-on involved. And what we decided to do from the time we started it, yes, financially, we could have hired people to do everything. We did need a winemaker and we did need a vineyard manager. Those were two things that were probably above us. But the rest, we are sales and marketing. We are social media. We personally pack and ship the shipments to our customers almost all the time. We put little notes in the boxes, say thank you for the order. We walk the vineyards when we make with the winemaker decisions on when to pick each vineyard, which we have 7 that we pick from, including our own. We're on the sorting table when the grapes come in, and we sort through the grapes and we pick out the bad ones and go through and taste through the barrels all year long and continue to just have our hands in the middle of the process. And there are people that do that, but they're not people that came in like we did later on in life with the financial means to do this. And so it's been interesting because our customers notice that and they talk about that. And so when we just built a private tasting room on our property on West Side Road in Hillsburg by appointment only. When people come out, we host them. We do it. Most people have a hospitality room with the staff that does that. When we do special events, 30A Wine Festival or Southwest Florida Wine Festival, Emerald Agassi's Carnival de Vin, many cases they'll have a salesperson that goes and does those. Now, we do them ourselves. And people will say, it's amazing. You're the only real owner that's here. Everybody else is an employee that's here representing. So I think that's where we're different.
Social media for a vineyard and winery, what does it look? Do you guys have an Instagram?
We do. Very active on Instagram. A little bit Facebook, a little bit Twitter. Instagram, my analysis is that's where the majority of the serious wine people seem to be. And so you don't have a lot of garbage in and out. You're only hearing from people that they only contact us or comment if it's strictly about the wine business. Other sites, you get all kinds of, feedback on politics and things, but not this. So I'm very pro Instagram. And, we're trying to build our followers up, and we post what's going on in the vineyards, at the winery, with our travel life, all involving wine, our philanthropy. We try to post all that on there. And, it's amazing the people we've gotten to meet, and some have come and actually met us after they found us through Instagram.
Plug the Instagram. What's the handle?
It's Thompson 3150. Then the 31 is a number. So it's Thompson 31 FIFTY. That's our website, that's our handle, that's our hashtag, that's our Facebook, that's our Twitter, and that's the end of our emails are, Mike at Thompson3150.com.
It seems, going back to Instagram for a second, it seems like Instagram is probably the most experiential social medium. So I'm not surprised to hear that that's where you guys maintain the most active presence. It just seems like I still am not entirely sure I understand what Twitter is for other than breaking news. And then Facebook, I think, seems to be more discussion oriented, but Instagram seems to be more, how they say that smell is the sense that's most closely linked to memory. I feel like Instagram is the social medium that touches our experiential side, that touches our feelings the fastest.
I think a little bit too, with the hashtags, by using the hashtags, it lets someone that's like travel, that person will see me all of a sudden, maybe take a look. On Facebook, I don't really see that. Facebook to me has been more family and friends from the past, and the way we've all been able to connect on just that social medium. Twitter, I still, it's politics and I hate you more. I mean, but with Instagram, I don't really get that. It's people like, oh my gosh, you're in the wine business and I saw your hashtag and yeah, we're interested in what kind of wine do you make? And we get lots of hits. So we get lots of comments. And it's actually all been nice, decent, positive stuff. No haters that we've come across, which is ironic.
That's true. Where are you going after this weekend?
So we had Monday for 3 weeks to South Africa, actually Rwanda, Uganda, and South Africa with another couple that owns a winery in Napa. And that includes a full week in South African wine country, which we have a lot of appointments to make it a little bit of a learning curve and learning experience. Now, we returned just in time to go to New Orleans for Emeril Lagasse's annual Carnaval de Vin, which is his big fundraiser, and being on his board, we're involved. We're pouring one of our Pinot Noirs at a Thursday dinner with Danica Patrick. She's pouring her new wine, her Cabernet. So we'll be doing the dinner with her on that Thursday, I think it's November 4th, and then his big event on November 5th and 6th. And then the week after, we are in Houston for the Bush Foundation annual gala, which our 2016 Russian River Pinot will be poured at the dinner for the Bush Foundation. And we'll also have an event that we do the Wednesday night before with them. So we're excited about that. Some of my classmates I have learned are involved in that foundation and so forth. I haven't seen in a long time. So and we immediately turn around and get ready to go to Southwest Florida for the Southwest Florida Wine Auction and Gala, the 30A Wine Fest in Rosemary Beach, Florida, and it goes on from there.
I can see why you have people that think that all you do is party, although it sounds to me like there will be a lot of work happening in there as well. There is. So any final thoughts now that we've gone through all of that?
Just appreciate the opportunity to be here and always love being at Texas A&M. It's a very, very special, unique place and very proud of it.
Thanks for being here, Mike.
Thank you.
Gig 'em. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to stay up to date on our latest videos, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to receive notifications. If you're in a rush or on the road, you can still join us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts. If you want to learn more about us or our guests, please visit our website at mays.tamu.edu/podcasts. Also, please check out Mays Business School's academic programs. They're the sponsors of our show, and you can find them in the description. Thanks, and gig 'em.